After Suho becomes a player, he starts working as a collector for a guild. A demon kidnaps all the hunters to use them as a firewood for StarDust manufacturing. Suho receives a quest notice to save the survivors, and he goes on to fight all 3 demons. However, he could not able to fight against coordinated attacks of demons, and suddenly Esil was summoned at the battle. Esil wonders if she has been summoned by a demon who is after her life and feels shocked when she sees a shadow soldier. Meanwhile, Suho and the demon continue clashing as Suho tries to finish him off. Out of nowhere, a second demon tries to attack him, and Suho senses the strike just in time to dodge it. He finds it difficult to handle the combined attacks of the demons and realizes that he will run out of mana if the fight continues much longer. He notices that Braki is also reaching his limit just from holding off one of the demons. Suho feels puzzled about how to split the demons so he can fight them one-on-one. Suddenly, Esil interrupts the fight and demands to know the location of Sung Jinho. Suho feels shocked to see a wounded female demon searching for his father. Beru abruptly questions what Esil is doing there. Esil recognizes Beru's voice and feels overjoyed to see him. She starts crying and asks Beru about Jinwoo's location. Suho feels completely lost and does not understand what is happening. The demons realize that Esil is familiar with their enemies and understand that it would be problematic if she joins their side. Esil believes that Jinwoo has returned to Earth and feels grateful. Beru tells Esil to take care of the demons for them. The demons decide to kill Esil first, since they only need her blood to make StarDust. Suho tries to recall if he has seen Esil before and worries that she might not be able to handle the demons. Beru confidently explains that low-ranking demons are no match for her and reveals that Esil is from a noble demon household that was spared when Jinwoo attacked the demon castle. He adds that her skills are on par with an S-rank hunter. Suho feels shocked upon hearing this and looks forward to seeing how an S-rank fights. However, Esil is put down by a single attack. Both Beru and Suho feel equally surprised, and Beru questions why Esil is so weak. Esil feels heartbroken as she recalls how her entire family was killed by low-ranking demons. She explains that half a year ago, most of the demons started a rebellion against her clan and that she lost her powers because her blood was taken from her. She requests Beru for some mana to fight, but Beru refuses and calls it a waste of his mana. Esil feels hurt by his response, and Suho realizes that he now has 2 people who have lost their powers. The demons finally recognize Esil as a noble demon from the Lataru clan and decide to grow stronger by consuming her blood. Suho wishes that he could fight the demons one-on-one, and Beru comes up with an idea to make it happen. He uses the Harsh Order's skill on Esil, which increases her stats by 50%, but also places the Curse of Insanity on her as a side effect. Beru commands Esil to kill the demons, and she charges at them. Braki also charges to attack one of the demons, while the second demon uses a shield to block Esil's attack. Suddenly, a third demon attacks Esil from behind, but Suho comes to her rescue and punches the demon away. One of the demons charges at Suho, and Suho swiftly slashes him into 2 with his sword. He levels up by 1 level, and the gauntlet devours the demon's soul to increase its physical damage by 31%. Esil tries to break through the shield, while the demon grows frustrated that one of their allies has been killed. Suddenly, Esil uses up all her energy and collapses unconscious. The demon feels confused about how his enemy has been knocked out, and Suho takes advantage of the opening to kill him. The final demon strikes Braki to the ground and realizes that he is now at a numbers disadvantage. Braki gets back on his feet, but the demon decides to devour Esil's blood to gain the strength to fight his enemies. Suho does not give him the chance and stops his attack. He commands Braki to strike, and Braki charges at the demon's throat. Meanwhile, Esil tries to stand, and Beru feels surprised that she is still alive. She continues asking about Suho and questions how he is able to use the powers of the Shadow Monarch. Beru mocks Esil that she is not loyal enough to recognize Suho and hints that she already knows who he is. Suho finally defeats the last demon and reaches level 20, which grants him access to the store. Esil recalls seeing Jinwoo with his son and finally realizes that Suho is the young monarch. Suho feels puzzled about how Esil knows he is the young monarch. Esil explains that she could not recognize him at first because he has changed so much and mentions that he looks exactly like his father. She gets unconscious again, and Suho feels worried about her condition. Beru checks on her and assures Suho that she has only fainted from exhaustion and that there is nothing to worry about. Suho feels relieved after hearing this and watches as Beru begins healing all the injured strike team hunters. Suho earns rewards for successfully completing the quest and receives 700 gold. He understands that the gold can be used to buy items from the store and recalls how his father used to reward him with money for completing errands when he was a child. Suho decides to make good use of the gold and purchases a low-grade healing potion. The system informs him that the potion cannot be transferred to others. Suho pours the healing potion into Esil's mouth, and Beru sarcastically praises his young monarch for spending gold coins on a worthless demon. Suho decides to take his allies to the Shadow Dungeon and brings out the key. He commands Braki to carry the corpses of the demons, while Gray follows him into the Shadow Dungeon. Beru questions why Suho is not coming along, and Suho explains that he still has some unfinished work. He brings out a buster sword and knows that the mist burns are suffering in pain. He kills all of them to end their misery. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the outside outside of the gate where members of the Hunters Association arrive to investigate the incident. One of the members reports that they found the dead bodies of hunters along with magic beasts and mist burns. He adds that there are signs of damage caused by blades. Another member speculates that something other than regular magic beasts might be involved in the incident and questions Lim about Sung Suho, who was supposed to be part of the collection team. Lim explains that Suho is his junior colleague who came to help him. The association member inquires about Suho's current location. Lim feels shocked by the question and lies that Suho has already escaped the dungeon and is now in a safe location. The association member praises Lim for following the hunter's manual guidelines. Lim recalls how Suho promised to save the hunters and feels confused about why Suho is lying about his rank, but believes that he is not doing it for any bad reason. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to Suho, and Beru begins explaining why Jinho left Earth. He reveals that the Shadow Monarch is fighting an extraterrestrial force in outer space and sent Beru to remove the seal on Suho. Suho asks Esil if they have met before, and Esil responds that they did during the fighting tutorial. She reminds him that he told her he would remember her name. Suho tries to recall his memories, but finds them hazy. He finally remembers how he tried to attack her in his dream and asks if she is the one who surrendered immediately upon seeing him. Beru feels frustrated that Esil performed her role half-heartedly during the test for the young monarch, and Esil starts feeling sad. Beru inquires about how she lost her powers and what happened to the demon realm. Esil recalls how Jinwoo annihilated all the demon nobles except the Ragnarok clan. For several decades, they lived in peace since Jinwoo had not summoned them. About half a year ago, a magical enhancer called StarDust began spreading among the demons. Suho remembers hearing the demons talk about StarDust before he killed them. Esil explains that StarDust does not increase the magical power of high-ranking demons, but significantly boosts the power of low-ranking demons. The StarDust became a catalyst for uniting the demons during Jinwoo's long absence. The rebellion sparked by the demons eventually escalated into a full-blown war. The Ragnarok clan fought to defend the demon castle, but could not stop the rebellion, and eventually fell after half a year of war. The demons did not stop there, and began draining the blood of noble demons to gain even more power. They drank the blood of Ragnarok clan members, and Esil lost her strength after losing most of her blood. Esil feels pathetic for being the only survivor of her family, and worries about how to inform Jinwoo that the demon realm has been taken over. Suho tells her that she did great, and mentions what his father would say if he were here. He expresses gratitude that Esil fought with her life on the line for his father, and offers to help revive the Esil household. Esil recalls how Jinwoo had promised her the same thing before, and starts crying. Suddenly, Suho receives a system notification to recruit Esil as his teammate since she is the last descendant of the White Flames. Suho understands that Esil is the last surviving member of the pure-blood demon noble lineage, and accepts the system request to recruit her. Esil receives a system notification about the Demon Blast skill that allows her to transfer energy to Suho. She feels surprised when she sees the status window, and Suho realizes that his teammates can also see the status window. Esil feels shocked to learn that she is the descendant of the White Flames, and Suho becomes curious to try the new bond skill. Esil agrees and uses the Demon Blast skill. Suho receives energy from her, but Esil collapses immediately after using the skill. She explains that the skill completely drained her energy after just one use. Suho thinks the skill must be incredibly powerful since it consumed all of Esil's energy. He punches a wall to test the skill's power, but the attack causes minimal damage. Both Suho and Beru feel surprised, and Beru comments that the punch seemed normal. Suho realizes that Esil's bond skill is different from Gray's, and Gray starts teasing her. Esil feels heartbroken that her attack did so little damage despite using all her energy. Suho notices that the charge amount for the skill is at 0% and feels confused about how to recharge it. Beru requests to eat the demon corpses, but Suho rejects the idea and explains that he plans to perform shadow extraction on them. He attempts to use shadow extraction, but the system informs him that the extraction is not possible because the mana is corrupted. Beru explains that even the Shadow Monarch could not extract shadows from demons since their souls are corrupted, and that Jinho would summon them by making contracts with the Radiru household. Suho tells Beru to eat the demons, and Esil feels heartbroken that her soul is being referred to as corrupted. Suho offers her a healing potion to cheer her up, but Esil rejects it, thinking she might be causing inconvenience to her young monarch. Suho reassures her and designates a part of the Shadow Dungeon as the White Flames territory for her. Esil feels shocked that Suho is going so far to help her, but Suho tells her not to worry since she is his teammate. Beru consumes the demons and informs Suho that he found a clue about the Apostles in their memories. He explains that StarDust is already being distributed on Earth and reveals that Mistborns are magic beasts from the outer universe. Esil feels shocked to learn that StarDust is being distributed on Earth, and Suho feels equally surprised to discover that Mistborns originate from the outer universe. Beru further explains that the demons are connected to Braki and that they receive humans from the Hyena Guild. The demons use the humans who were on the verge of corruption into Mistborns as materials for StarDust. He adds that there are other places manufacturing StarDust known as StarDust factories. Beru summarizes the process, explaining that the Hyena Guild kidnaps humans and passes them them to the Grim Reaper Guild, and the Grim Reaper Guild sends them to the StarDust factories. The factories then use the humans to create StarDust. Beru feels confident that the Itarim are behind all three operations and reveals the shocking news that a human created the StarDust manufacturing system. Suho feels stunned to hear that a human is helping the Apostles, and Beru reveals that the human is Lee Minsung, the vice CEO of the Grim Reaper Guild. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Lee Minsung, who is surrounded by reporters eager to interview him. One reporter asks about the investigation into his connection with the Hyena Guild, and Lee claims that he has been found innocent of any crimes. Another reporter boldly questions whether Lee was truly unaware of the kidnappings caused by the Hyena Guild. Lee responds that his guild always tries to do its best and explains that he supported the Hyena Guild to help a D-rank guild grow stronger and contribute to the world. He starts crying and admits that he did a poor job managing the Hyena Guild directly and apologizes for the trouble caused. The reporters believe his lies and think he is innocent, especially since the Hunters Association also declared him innocent. Lee feels pleased with his performance and recalls how the association chairman barely interrogated him. He realizes that the association is still unaware of the origins of StarDust and decides to leave. Meanwhile, Suho arrives to check on Lee Minsung and asks Beru if he senses any Itarim energy coming from him. Beru informs Suho that he does not sense any such energy. Suho concludes that Lee Minsung is not being controlled by the Itarim and considers finishing him off. However, Beru advises against it, pointing out that Lee Minsung is an A-rank hunter. Suddenly, Lee senses something behind him and turns around to check, but he finds nothing. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to a bar where Lee Minsung feels pleased with himself for changing the public's perception through a bit of acting. The Hunters Association has declared him innocent, and the public continues to believe that Lee is doing good deeds. Suddenly, a woman approaches him and orders everyone else to leave. Lee feels annoyed by her approach and questions if he is supposed to report everything he does to her. The woman quickly realizes that Lee has a nasty personality. It is revealed that Lee Minsung was born with a silver spoon and became a Korean star during his teenage years. After the Great Cataclysm, his pride was shattered when his driver awakened as an S-rank hunter, while Lee himself only awakened as an A-rank hunter. This caused a huge commotion, and the spotlight shifted entirely to his former driver. Meanwhile, the woman requests to discuss a business proposal and mentions that she needs a large supply of StarDust. Lee explains that the supply is limited since one of the factories was destroyed. However, the woman remains confident that Lee can resolve the issue, and Lee agrees to speak with his business partner about it. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Shadow Dungeon, where Suho begins his daily quest. Gray kills several goblins while Esil slashes through a few of them. Suho joins in and eliminates all the goblins in a single strike. He decides to summon the next wave of goblins, and Beru observes that Suho might be feeling impatient after their earlier discussion in the movie theater. Beru reminds Suho that their goal is to gather information about the Apostles from Lee Minsung, who is controlling the StarDust distribution. Suho admits that he does not know how to extract the information from Lee. Beru suggests an idea and explains that he could eat Lee to obtain the information. He further reveals that the Shadow Monarch had already granted him permission to consume humans if they are identified as evil. Beru sadly points out that Suho is currently ranked as a C-rank hunter, while Gray is ranked as D-rank. Esil has lost most of her strength and is also ranked as C-rank. When Suho uses the bond skill with Gray, he barely surpasses the B-rank threshold. Beru explains that while there are differences in strength within the same rank, it would typically take 10 D-rank hunters to defeat one C-rank hunter. They all realize that Suho is still not strong enough to defeat an A-rank hunter like Lee Minsung. Esil inquires about Beru's rank, and Beru proudly states that he is a general rank. Esil mocks him by saying that he looks more like a foot soldier. Beru becomes furious and threatens to rip her apart. Meanwhile, Suho completes the daily quest and notices that the number of goblins he kills no longer increases beyond the set amount. He opens the random box and receives an ash ring that increases his sensing stats by 5 points. Suho feels disappointed that he can no longer level up by defeating goblins, and even hunting demons only increases his gauntlet's strength by 3%. He wants to grow stronger but feels unsure about how to achieve it. Suho decides to enter a dungeon to hunt magic beasts and level up. He tries contacting multiple guilds but finds that they are only offering collection or mining work. He realizes that no guild will hire him for combat roles as long as he remains an E-rank hunter. Beru advises him to get re-evaluated at the Hunters Association. Suho hesitates because he wants to avoid drawing attention to himself. He worries that the Apostles might discover his existence and use him as a weakness against his father. Beru reassures Suho that he does not need to worry about the Apostles since they might not be strong enough due to the effects of dimensional transfer. Suho feels confused about what Beru means by dimensional transfer. Beru explains that any being from the outer universe must use dimensional transfer to travel between universes. The outer wall of the transfer is extremely narrow, which creates resistance for mana to pass through. Even if someone tries to forcefully expand the outer walls, the walls restore themselves quickly, and the process requires more energy depending on the amount of mana being transferred. This is why large armies of Itarim fighting in the outer universe and even the Shadow Monarch cannot easily enter this universe. Everything starts to make sense to Suho as he realizes realizes that the Apostles have only used Braki and the demons so far. Suho believes that this might be his best chance to grow stronger. Beru suddenly recalls how Jinwoo gave him a key and how Jinwoo instructed him to deliver it to a specific person who could help Suho in many ways. Meanwhile, Suho gets an idea about how to enter gates without breaking any Hunters Association rules and decides to meet his uncle. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Ahjin Soft Game Company, which has created a virtual reality game called Beautiful World. The game has become so popular that it has maintained the top spot for the last 4 years. Suho visits the company for the first time and finds the assistant waits for him. He wonders why there are so many hunters in his uncle's company. The manager explains that many awakened individuals prefer not to risk their lives in dungeons and instead take on missions or work as guards. Suho questions if the company is assigning missions to hunters, and the manager mentions that a company is working on a project but refuses to provide further details. Suho guesses that the project might be related to hunters. Jinho gets excited to see his nephew and mentions that his aunt has been worrying about him. Suho apologizes for not contacting them more often and explains that he has been busy. They sit down and Suho presents a business proposal. Jinho realizes why Suho wanted to meet him so suddenly, and Suho feels confident that his uncle will not reject the proposal. Jinho understands that Suho needs help to enter gates, and Suho offers the rights to all mana crystals in exchange for help in purchasing gate rights and recruiting strike team members. He promises to clear C rank and D rank gates with ease. Jinho boldly questions how an E rank like Suho can clear high-ranking gates and mentions that even as a D rank hunter, he cannot clear a D rank gate. Suho tries to explain that he has a way to clear the dungeon alone, but Jinho suspects that Suho is trying to enter dungeons to search for his parents. Suho realizes that his uncle might think this way, and Beru notices that Suho intends to reveal the truth. Suho explains to Beru that he trusts his uncle the most and boldly reveals that he is a hunter who can level up. Jinho feels shocked, and Suho begins explaining about invaders from outer universes and how he needs to kill magic beasts to grow stronger. Suddenly, Jinho starts laughing and thinks Suho is pranking him. He reveals that he is planning to create a game based on the concept of solo leveling, where a hunter starts as an E rank and rises to surpass even S rank to become the strongest awakened in the world. Suho suspects that the story might be based on his father's life, and Jinho mocks him for failing to trick him. Beru steps in and defends Suho by mentioning that his young monarch did not fail and that he might have vague memories from his past timeline. Jinho feels shocked to see Beru, and Beru offers to help Suho with the business proposal. Beru brings out a key given to him by Jinwoo and explains that it is the fastest way to recover Jinho's memories. He informs that the key is a gift from the Shadow Monarch and places it inside Jinho. Suddenly, Jinho finds himself in a different world where he meets a hunter who looks exactly like him. He remembers all his memories from the past timeline and starts crying for being able to meet Jinwoo again in this world. Suho asks what Beru did to his uncle, and Beru explains that Jinho has simply recovered his memories of the past world. Jinho understands that Suho has a power similar to Jinwoo's with no limits. Suho shares the entire story about the Apostles and how his father is fighting in the outer universe. Jinho questions why Suho did not come to him with the real story from the start instead of bringing a business proposal. Suho struggles to answer the question. Jinho finally agrees to the business proposal, and both Suho and Beru feel overjoyed that their plan has worked. Jinho feels sad knowing that Jinwoo is enduring such tough times alone and understands that Jinwoo is giving him a chance to help. Meanwhile, Suho prepares to raid his first gate after purchasing the rights. He sees just enough hunters to meet the minimum requirement for a strike team. One of the hunters questions if Suho is really going to pay them 4 million just to be part of the strike team and asks if Suho plans to go inside the gate alone. Suho confirms that he is going alone. Another hunter comments that Suho is being reckless for thinking he can clear the gate by himself and offers to help if needed. Suho feels grateful that a hunter is willing to assist him, but still enters the gate alone. He summons both Esil and Gray and prepares to fight the magic beasts. Suho feels determined not to let his father fight alone and resolves to grow stronger by leveling up. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Minsung and he goes to meet the Apostles. It has been 3 months since their last meeting and he starts walking inside the building. One of the security guards recognizes him and asks if he is really the Vice Guild Master of the Grim Reaper Guild. Lee knows the importance of maintaining a good image among people and smiles at him. The security guard gladly mentions that he will continue to cheer for the hero of the hunters. This encounter makes Lee recall his backstory. Lee debuted as a celebrity at an early age and eventually became known as the Prince of Asia. After the Great Cataclysm, he awakened as an A-rank hunter and believed he would continue to live as an apex predator. However, his world was shaken when his driver Lim Taegyu revealed that he had awakened as an S-rank hunter. Lim even offered Lee a position in the new guild that he was planning to create. From that day, Lee felt like his world was crumbling and decided to restore the structure to how it originally was. This led him to join hands with the Apostles. Lee enters the room and notices all the servants looking at him with intimidating smiles. He warns them to wipe the smiles off their faces, or he will rip their mouths apart. He wonders why the apostle has not greeted him yet, and feels stunned when he sees a boy with odd hair and eye colors. He senses that the mana of the apostle has increased since their last meeting compared to when he was just a baby. Lee comments that the boy is growing up as planned. Tiel corrects him and explains that he is not growing up but recovering his strength. He reveals that he splits his body into fragments and sends them to this world to resolve the dimensional transfer issue. Tiel further explains that the first fragment arrived in baby form, and the current form is the fusion of the second fragment with the baby form. He adds that while his memories remain intact, his personality changes with each fragment, since each fragment has its own personality. Lee feels the process is too complicated. Tiel warns not to act too friendly with him. Lee responds that he does not care about his personality and asks if he remembers their promise. Tiel confirms that he remembers the promise to give Lee wealth and fame, along with the final request to kill Lim Taegyu. Lee smirks sinisterly upon hearing this, and Tiel asks about the reason for his visit. Lee informs Tiel about the problem with StarDust manufacturing and explains that the Hyena Guild, which provided firewood, was destroyed. He adds that the person responsible wears a mask and uses a sword. Tiel questions why there are issues with the StarDust manufacturing system when Lee promised there would be none. Lee responds that worrying about the issues will not solve anything. Tiel calls Lee incompetent and criticizes the previous personality for choosing him as a pawn. Lee feels furious at the insult and threatens to kill Tiel before he can fully restore his strength. Tiel calls humans uncivilized for believing that a hunter's strength depends on the quality of mana. He demonstrates his power by controlling an old man walking by. Lee senses mana surging in all directions and realizes that Tiel has brainwashed everyone in the building. Tiel explains that the previous personality chose Lee for survival, but now that he has regained strength, he no longer needs him. He warns that their relationship will depend on how competent Lee proves to be. All the servants begin walking toward Lee with the intent to kill him. Lee decides to back down and lies that he was only testing whether Tiel could really kill an S-rank hunter like Lim Taegyu. Tiel decides to spare him for now, since he still has some use. He shows Lee a suitcase full of simulants made by condensing StarDust 100 times. Lee examines it, and Tiel explains that diluting the simulant can produce a large amount of StarDust, and that it can work on A-rank hunters like Lee. However, Lee decides not to use it because he does not want to try something he knows nothing about. Lee leaves, and Tiel senses that another fragment is arriving soon. He decides not to hide his strength anymore and plans to begin his real invasion of Earth once he fuses with the third personality. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to the gate where Esil and Gray are fighting the final boss of the dungeon. Suho leaps toward the boss and grabs it with his hands. He applies immense force and eventually breaks the dungeon boss.